Welcome to Across the Pitch. Let's get into it. Start 'em in with Liverpool. Let's talk about that absolute madness at the Gitek, where Darwin Nunez just wrote himself into Liverpool folklore. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Liverpool haven't won in the league in 2025 yet. 2 draws on the bounce. Maybe there's a hint of pressure creeping in. All this talk about crisis after those draws against United and Forest, that cup loss to Spurs, well, Darwin had other ideas. The thing is, for 90 minutes, this was looking like one of those classic everything but the goal performances. 37 shots. You're reading that right, 37. And get this, an XG of 3.4. The chances were there, but the ball just wouldn't go in. And you know what's mad? Some people will look at the scoreline and go, oh, jammy Liverpool with their late goals. But did you watch the game? Let's break this down properly, because the stats tell a story that the scoreline doesn't. Liverpool absolutely dominated this game from start to finish. Before we even talk about those 37 shots, let's look at the build-up play. The way they were moving the ball, the patterns of play, the positioning. It was like watching a team in training. Except Brentford weren't exactly standing still, were they? First half. Soboslai hits this absolute rocket that crashes off the crossbar. You're thinking that's got to go in. Then Luis Diaz pops up at the far post completely unmarked, and you're expecting the net to bulge, but nah. The G-Tech's been absolutely raining goals this season, 52 in 12 games before this one, but for 90 minutes, it looked like the well had run dry. And let's talk about Brentford's approach, because this was fascinating. Thomas Frank sets them up to basically say, right, you can have the ball, but good luck breaking us down. Bumo's up there on his own, absolutely isolated, while the rest of the team's basically camped in their own half. The thing is, when you play like that against this Liverpool team, you're basically inviting waves of pressure. Gotta mention Liverpool's press as well. Everyone talks about their attacking play, but the way they were winning the ball back? Ridiculous. Every time Brentford tried to play out, there were red shirts everywhere. The coordination between the front three, the midfield stepping up, this is what people mean when they talk about organized chaos. And speaking of organization, how about that high line from Van Dijk and Konate? Absolute masterclass in defensive positioning. But here's where it gets interesting. 91st minute. Trent Alexander-Arnold whips in this perfect low cross, and who's there? Darwin Nunez. The finish? Clinical. 1-0. And before Brentford can even catch their breath, he's at it again. Gets the ball in a crowded box, shows that composure everyone's been crying out for, and bang! 2-0. Let's take a moment to appreciate Arne Slot here, because what he's done with this Liverpool team is nothing short of remarkable. Remember when everyone was saying Klopp left too early? That this team needed rebuilding? Well, Slot's come in and basically said, nah, let me just fine-tune this machine. The way they're playing, the pressing, the possession, the patterns of play, it's like they've taken Klopp's heavy metal football and added some classical composition to it. And you know what's really interesting? The way Slot's using his squad. Look at today's game. He sees it's not quite happening for some players, brings on Darwin, and the whole dynamic changes. It's not just about having good players on the bench, it's about knowing exactly when to use them. That's the difference between a good manager and a great one, isn't it? The scary thing is, this wasn't even Liverpool at their clinical best. Only 8 of those 37 shots on target, Salah having one of those days where nothing quite comes off, and they still find a way to win. That's what champions do, isn't it? And speaking of champions, let's look at this Liverpool team's mentality. You're drawing 0-0 going into stoppage time. You've had nearly 40 shots, goalkeepers having a worldie. It would be so easy to start thinking it's just not our day. But nah, they keep pushing, keep believing. Let's talk about Richard Hughes as well, because this is fascinating. Liverpool's new sporting director, coming in from Bournemouth, where he's been absolutely smashing it with recruitment. Look at that Bournemouth team now, absolutely flying. And he's coming into a Liverpool setup that's already well-oiled. The scary thing for everyone else? This Liverpool team hasn't even had a transfer window with Hughes yet. And you know what makes this even more special? The Darwin Nunez story. The stick this guy's got, The talk about him maybe being sold, the endless social media comments about his finishing. But look at the Liverpool fans. Not once have they turned on him. No abuse, no calling for him to be sold, just pure support. That's why players keep going, isn't it? That's why they don't let their heads drop. And what does he do? Comes off the bench and wins them the game with two absolutely clinical finishes. Got to give a shout out to Liverpool's midfield as well. Everyone's talking about the goals, but that control in the middle of the park, sensational. The way they were recycling possession, always offering an option, never letting Brentford settle. That's the foundation that lets your forwards go and win games like this. For Brentford, though, oh dear. That's 3 losses in their last 4 at home now. The Gitek used to be a fortress. They've scored 29 goals here this season. But they're the only team in the league yet to keep a clean sheet at home. And today showed exactly why. When you sit that deep for that long against a team like Liverpool, eventually something's got to give. The implications for the title race are massive here. Liverpool are now 6 points clear at the top with a game in hand. Arsenal watching this before their Villa game must have been pulling their hair out. Even if they win, they're still looking at that gap thinking, how do we catch a team that just keeps finding a way? And let's talk about that Arsenal game at Anfield coming up, because that's going to be massive, isn't it? Arsenal aren't going to come to Anfield and put Liverpool on the back foot. That crowd, that atmosphere. They're going to have to try and keep a clean sheet and nick something on the break. Good luck with that when Liverpool are in this mood. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This crisis people were talking about? 2 draws and a cup loss? Come on. As someone said, if your crisis is drawing games, you probably should have won. That's not much of a crisis, is it? Liverpool haven't lost in the league since that late Newcastle equalizer in December, and even then, they were the better team. Looking ahead, you've got to fancy Liverpool for the title now. They've got that perfect mix. The experience of Van Dijk, Salah, and Alisson, who've won it before, combined with this fresh energy Slots brought in. Half this team's already got Premier League winners' medals. They know exactly what it takes to get over the line. The scary part? This Liverpool team might actually be getting better. The understanding between the players, the confidence growing game by game, and they've still got Diogo Jota to come back from injury. When you've got players like that still to return, and you're already grinding out wins like this, that's championship form right there. For Liverpool fans, this is the stuff dreams are made of. 2-0 down at halftime against Fulham? No problem. 0-0 in stoppage time at Brentford? Hold my beer. This is a team that just refuses to know when they're beaten. They've got that perfect blend of quality and resilience, talent and temperament. When you look at the other teams in the title race, Arsenal without a proper striker, City too far behind, you start to realize this might actually be Liverpool's year. And just a final word on that Anfield factor, because it's going to be crucial in this run-in, isn't it? That place becomes a different beast when there's a title on the line. The atmosphere, the energy. It's like having a 12th man. Arsenal have got to go there, and you just know that crowd's going to be absolutely bouncing. The Premier League might not be won in February, but performances like this is what winning teams are made of. Speaking of Arsenal, let's talk about that absolute heartbreak at the Emirates, where Arsenal just threw away a 2-goal lead and possibly their title hopes. Coming into this one after that Liverpool result earlier in the day, you're thinking, okay, Arsenal have to win this to stay in touch. Well, football had other ideas, didn't it? Let's break this down properly, because this wasn't just any collapse. This was the kind of collapse that can define a whole season. First half, Arsenal looking good, playing with that intensity we've come to expect. Martinelli gets them off to a perfect start, taking full advantage of some shocking defending from Maatsen to bundle home Trossard's cross. And you're thinking right, this is exactly what they needed after watching Liverpool nick it late at Brentford. Then 10 minutes after halftime, it gets even better. Trossard, who by the way was having an absolute stormer, sets up Havertz for his 13th of the season. 2-0 up, cruising, the Emirates bouncing. This was Arsenal's chance to show they're proper title contenders, wasn't it? At this point, you're looking at the game thinking, right, This is where Arsenal show they've learned from last season. But then, oh my days, what a collapse. 60 minutes in, Matty Cash whips in this cross, and there's Tielemans with a header that gives Raya absolutely no chance. And before Arsenal can even get their heads straight, Tielemans nearly does it again. Hits the post from the edge of the box, and you're thinking, that's got to be a wake-up call, right? Wrong. 8 minutes after their first, Villa strike again. Thomas Partey, who by the way was filling in at right back with Timber covering for the injured Saliba in the middle, completely loses Watkins at the back post. The finish? Absolutely clinical. 2-2. The Emirates goes from bouncing to basically a library in 8 minutes. And let's talk about that defensive setup because this is where it gets interesting. Arsenal are missing Saliba. Yeah, but they've still got enough quality at the back to see out a 2-goal lead, don't they? The problem wasn't just individual mistakes, it was the whole structural collapse. That right side with Partey filling in, completely exposed. And Villa, credit to them, spotted it and absolutely exploited it. Got to give a massive shout out to Unai Emery here, though. The way he set up Villa after going 2 down, the changes he made. This is why they're pushing for Champions League football, isn't it? Remember when everyone was laughing at Villa's European ambitions? Well, who's laughing now? They're just 2 points off that 4th spot. The scary thing is, they didn't even play particularly well for the first hour. But they've got that resilience now, that belief that they're never out of a game. But then, just when you think this game couldn't get any more dramatic, 89th minute, Marino gets a shot off. It takes a deflection, and Havertz is there. Goal! The Emirates erupts. But wait, VR's having a look. And it's handball. You could hear the whole stadium groan. From potential winner to absolute despair in what? 30 seconds. That's the kind of moment that can absolutely break a team's spirit. The fan reaction after this one? Oh my days. You've got people at AFTV absolutely fuming. Some questioning Odegaard's captaincy, saying he goes missing in big moments. And you know what? They might have a point. When you need your captain to grab the game by the scruff of the neck to settle things down after conceding that first goal? Where was he? Others calling for a complete revamp of the forward line, which seems harsh when you've scored 2. But in these big moments, you need to be clinical, don't you? And let's talk about Arsenal's defensive record, because this isn't just a one-off, is it? They've been conceding goals even when teams aren't having much of the game. Look at that Fulham match. 2 shots, 2 goals. Today, Villa barely laid a glove on them for an hour, then suddenly score twice in 8 minutes. That's not just bad luck. That's a pattern emerging, isn't it? The thing is, this result is absolutely massive for the title race. Liverpool win with those 2 stoppage time goals from Darwin, and now Arsenal drop points at home? They're 6 points behind with a game more played. And you know what makes it worse? This wasn't even a smash and grab from Villa. Arsenal were comfortable, cruising even, and they just collapsed. As one fan put it, it's like watching Mike Tyson versus Mike Hawker. You've got all the talent in the world, but if you can't close out games, what's the point? Looking at Arsenal's body language after that disallowed goal, that tells you everything, doesn't it? Players surrounding the ref trying to get a yellow card with a minute to go instead of getting the ball back in play quickly? That's not title-winning mentality, is it? These lot need to watch the Michael Jordan documentary to see how real champions behave. The scary thing for Arsenal fans? That Anfield game coming up. They can't go there and try to keep a clean sheet anymore. They need a win. But after a collapse like this, the confidence has got to be shot, hasn't it? And let's be honest, if you're Liverpool watching this game, you're probably thinking the title race is done already. 6 points clear with a game in hand against a team that can't hold on to a 2-goal lead at home? For Villa, though, this could be absolutely season-defining. To come from 2 down at the Emirates against a team fighting for the title? That's the kind of result that can spark a real push for that Champions League spot. The way they stayed calm after going 2 down, the belief they showed, that's the sign of a team going places, isn't it? And with Unai Emery at the helm, you wouldn't bet against them making that top 4. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? Arsenal have actually made progress from last season. They lost this fixture last year. But when you're in a title race against this Liverpool team, drawing games you should win just isn't good enough. Liverpool score 2 in stoppage time to win at Brentford. Arsenal throw away a 2-goal lead at home. That's the difference between champions and challengers right there. Some Arsenal fans are saying the title was done in December. Bit harsh maybe, but you can see their point, can't you? When Liverpool keep finding ways to win and you keep finding ways to drop points, that's not coincidence. That's just levels. One team's got that championship mentality, that refuse to lose attitude. The other, well, they keep showing us they don't want it. For Arsenal, it's back to the drawing board. For Villa, it's dreams of Champions League nights. And for Liverpool, well, they must be absolutely loving this. Now to Juventus and Milan, let's talk about that revenge mission at the Allianz, where Juventus just got their own back against Milan. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Milan just beat Juve in the Supercoppa 2 weeks ago. Conceição's unbeaten start. Surely, lightning can't strike twice? Well, Thiago Motta had other ideas. First half, and this is fascinating stuff. Bangula and Koopmeiners both having a go from distance, both just skimming the crossbar. Then you've got this brilliant corner routine from Milan. Theo whips it in. Reinders peels away completely unmarked, and if it wasn't for that deflection off Locatelli, could have been a very different story. Got to talk about Maignan heroics early on as well. Comes absolutely flying out of his box to stop Yildiz getting on the end of this dodgy back pass. Proper sweeper, keeper stuff. But here's where it gets interesting. You could see him feeling his muscle in the second half, clearly not right, but still pulls off this ridiculous double save. First uses his chest to deny Weah at the near post, then somehow gets up to keep out Koopmeiners. The kind of saves that make you go, how's he done that? But then, just when you're thinking maybe Milan might nick something, bang! Nico Gonzalez spreads it wide. Bangula cuts in on his right foot looking for that far corner and gets the luckiest of deflections off Emerson Royal. The ball just completely wrong-foots Maignan. Sometimes you need that bit of luck, don't you? And before Milan can even catch their breath, it gets worse. Kefren Thuram, who by the way was absolutely running the midfield, wins it back and plays this perfect through ball for Tim Weah. The finish? Clinical. And you know what makes this even better? His dad George used to play for Milan in the 90s. Talk about writing your own headlines. But let's talk about Thiago Motta for a minute, because what he's done with this Juve team is absolutely remarkable. Remember all those games where they'd take the lead and throw it away? Not today. As he said after the match, they've been building up to this. The pressing, the intensity, the way they stopped Maignan playing out from the back. This was absolutely perfect tactically. For Conceição, though, oh dear. His first loss as Milan boss, and he is not happy. Going on about how Juve wanted it more, saying his players need to keep their fridges empty to stay hungry. When was the last time you heard a manager that angry? But you know what? He's got a point, hasn't he? Milan were absolutely flat after those goals went in. No reaction, no fight, nothing. The scary thing is, Milan were already missing half their team. No Morata through suspension, Pulisic injured, Chukwueze out, Loftus-Cheek missing, and now Maignan's picked up this muscle problem? With that massive Champions League game against Girona coming up on Wednesday? Talk about bad timing. For Juve, though, this is absolutely massive. They're now 6 points clear of Milan in that race for top 4. Yeah, Milan have got that game in hand against Bologna. But after a performance like this, you've got to fancy Juve's chances of holding on to that Champions League spot. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This might be exactly what Conceição needed. Sometimes you need that wake-up call, don't you? As he said himself, he's coached smaller clubs with less quality, but more hunger. When you've got players like Leao and Theo having off days, and your manager's basically calling out the whole squad's mentality, that's either going to make or break this Milan team. Got to mention those injuries to Yildiz and Vlahovic as well. Both of them doubts for that huge Champions League game against Club Brugge now. But the way this Juve team's playing, the intensity, the pressing, the confidence growing with every game, they might not even need them. 2 weeks ago, Milan were celebrating that Supercoppa win, looking like they might push on under Conceição. Now, They're 6 points off the Champions League spots. Their keeper's injured, and their manager's questioning their hunger. Just when you think you've got Italian football figured out, a night like this comes along and flips everything on its head. Staying in Italy, let's talk about that absolute thriller at the Juventus Stadium, where Napoli just took a massive step towards the Scudetto. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Atalanta unbeaten in 15 games. Napoli just lost Kvaratskhelia to PSG. This could be interesting, right? Well, what a game this turned out to be. The thing is, Atalanta were already missing some big names, weren't they? No Kolasinac through suspension, Kosonu, Cuadrado, and Scamacca all injured. But they still came out flying. Retegui, back in the starting lineup after injury, picks up the ball with his back to goal and absolutely leathers it into the top corner. The technique on that? Ridiculous. But then, just when you think Atalanta might run away with it like they did in that 3-0 win back in November, Napoli show their class. David Neres, who by the way has stepped straight into Kvara's shoes, sees his cross deflected to Politano, and the finish from that tight angle. Top corner. Talk about responding to pressure. And before anyone can catch their breath, Napoli turn it around. Neres again involved, this time with this absolutely delicious back heel at the corner flag. Anguissa pulls it back, and there's McTominay sweeping it into the roof of the net. When was the last time we saw a midfielder timing a run like that? But Atalanta? Oh, my days, they've got something special in Lookman, haven't they? Takes on Di Lorenzo, beats 3 defenders, and somehow threads it through a forest of legs. The individual brilliance on that goal? That's why they were unbeaten in 15. Second half, and Gasparini's men are throwing everything at it. Lookman slips this perfect ball through to Samardzic, forces a save from Meret, then De Ketelera's header needs a worldy save. You're thinking surely Atalanta are going to win this? But then, 70 minutes in, Anguissa, with his second assist of the night, stands up this perfect cross, and who's there? Romelu Lukaku. The way he shrugs off Scalvini for that glancing header? That's what 100 million pounds worth of striker looks like, isn't it? Got to talk about Antonio Conte's reaction after the game, though, because this was fascinating. Everyone asking about replacing Kvaratskhelia, and he comes out with this absolute gem. What do we want potential for? A youth team player. Let's not take people for a ride here. That's classic Conte, isn't it? Straight talking. No nonsense. The thing is, this result is massive for the title race. Napoli now 7 points clear at the top, and they've just beaten one of their main rivals away from home. When you look at the players they've lost, Kim Min-jae, Osimhen, now Kvara, this is absolutely incredible, isn't it? But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? Gasparini's reaction says they emerge stronger from games like this. And you know what? He might be right. Yeah, their unbeaten run's over, but the way they played, the chances they created, on another day, they win this. For Conte, though, this is sweet vindication, isn't it? Everyone questioning whether Napoli were real title contenders, and what does he do? Goes to Bergamo, puts 3 past the team that hammered them in November, and extends their lead at the top. That's what champions are made of. 5 goals, comebacks, world-class finishes, and we've still got half a season to go. If Napoli keep playing like this, that Scudetto's heading back to the Diego Armando Maradona, isn't it? Now to Barcelona. Let's talk about that absolute frustration at the Coliseum, Alfonso Perez, where Barcelona's perfect start to 2025 just came to a grinding halt. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Barca need to make up ground in the title race. But Getafe away? This is never straightforward, is it? First half, and Barcelona actually start brilliantly. The way they're moving the ball between the lines, finding spaces in that low block, and then, oh my days, what a moment. Pedri with this absolutely sublime through ball. Koundé makes the run, first shot saved, but keeps his composure to pass it home on the rebound. 1-0, and you're thinking, right, this is where Barca kick on. But here's where it gets interesting. Chance after chance goes begging, and you can just feel Getafe starting to grow into it, can't you? Slowing the game down, making it scrappy, and then bang! Their only attack of the half, Alenya whips in the cross. Koba da Costa's volley saved by Peña, but Arambari's there for the tap-in. 1-1. Then the game just descends into absolute chaos. Every Barcelona touch is met with a tackle, players getting clattered left and right, and the referee just letting it all go. When was the last time we saw a game with this many unpunished fouls? Second half, Flick tries to change things up, brings on Frankie de Jong for Casado, looking for more passing quality. But Getafe just drop even deeper. We're talking proper anti-football here, aren't we? 7 defenders at times just sitting there, making it impossible to play through. Got to talk about those chances though, because Barcelona created an XG of 2.5. That should be enough to win any game. But when you've got players getting cleaned out every time they touch the ball, it's not easy, is it? Yamal nearly produces a moment of magic with this perfect ball over the top for Rafinha, but the Brazilian can't convert the half volley. And let's talk about those closing minutes, because this is where Getafe's dark arts reach new levels. The time wasting, the rolling around, the whole performance. It's like watching a pantomime, isn't it? Barcelona's players and coaches absolutely fuming. But what can you do when the referee's letting them get away with it? The thing is, this result is absolutely massive in the title race. That's 7 draws in their last 8 La Liga matches for Barcelona. When you're trying to chase down the leaders, these are the games you've got to find a way to win, aren't it? But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? The referee's performance. Pedri getting absolutely battered every time he touches the ball. Clear fouls in the box getting waved away, and then suddenly finding his yellow card in the 86th minute. Where was that for the previous 85? For Barcelona, though, they've got to look at themselves as well, haven't they? Yeah, the officiating was poor. Yeah, Getafe made it impossible to play. But with an XG of 2.5, you've got to be more clinical. These are the kind of games that can come back to haunt you at the end of the season. Looking ahead, though, maybe Flick's got a point about focusing on the Champions League and Copa del Rey. The team's playing better in those competitions. And when you're dropping points like this in the league, sometimes you've got to prioritize where your best chances of success are. Sometimes you've just got to accept that some teams will do anything to get a result. From brilliant football in the opening minutes to absolute chaos by the end, welcome to Getafe away. Moving on to Newcastle, let's talk about that absolute masterclass from Justin Kluivert at St. James Park. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Newcastle on this ridiculous 9-game winning streak, looking to make history with 10 straight wins. Bournemouth missing players left and right. This should be straightforward, right? Oh, how wrong we were. First 6 minutes, and bang! Kluivert, who by the way only started because James Hill pulled his hamstring in that Chelsea game, gets this absolutely perfect ball from Semenyo and just guides it into the far corner like he's been doing it his whole life. The control, the composure, chef's kiss. And you know what's funny? His dad, Patrick, only scored once at St. James during his time there. Justin's already topped that in 6 minutes. Newcastle tried to respond, but honestly, they looked lost. Takes them 20 minutes to even get a shot off. Joelinton blazing it over like he's trying to hit the Tyne Bridge. But then, 25 minutes in, they finally wake up. Lewis Hall whips in this corner, and who else but Bruno Guimaraes rises highest. Got to say, though, Kepa's got to do better there. Gets a hand to it, but just couldn't keep it out. But here's where it gets interesting. Bournemouth, they just keep coming. And right before halftime, Bruno, who just got them back in it, loses the ball outside his own box, and Kluivert's there again. The finish? Clinical. 2-1. You could feel the frustration building. Joelinton even gets himself booked for this wild challenge on Kluivert in stoppage time. Second half, you're thinking, okay, now Newcastle are going to turn it on, right? This is where that famous St. James atmosphere kicks in? Nope. Instead, Bournemouth just keep creating chances. Ouattara thinks he's made it 3, but VR spots the ball going out earlier. Bit of luck for Newcastle there. Then David Brooks forces this ridiculous save from Dubravka, and you're thinking maybe, just maybe, Newcastle might nick something here. But then, oh dear, Anthony Gordon loses possession more than anyone else on the pitch, and this time it's costly. Gives it straight to Tyler Adams, and Kluivert? Remember that hat trick of penalties against Wolves in November? Well, this one's even better. Absolutely leathers it into the far corner. Hat trick hero. That's 10 league goals for him now this season. And just when you think it can't get any worse for Newcastle, Milos Kerkez decides to join the party in stoppage time. gets the ball on that left side, and just absolutely rockets one past Dubravka. 4-1. When was the last time Newcastle got battered like this at home? You've got to go back to that City game in December 2021. The scary thing is, this wasn't even a full-strength Bournemouth. They've got this ridiculous injury list. Hill pulls up in the warm-up, and they still go and do this. 10 games unbeaten now in the league, their best ever top-flight run. And get this, they're now just 1 point behind Newcastle. For Newcastle, though, oh dear. Alexander Isak, who by the way had scored in 9 straight games coming into this, doesn't even get a shot off from open play. The only time he gets near goal is this free kick that hits the wall. Eddie Howe must have been having nightmares watching his old club do this to his Newcastle side. That's the biggest home defeat he's had since taking over, apart from that City game. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This Bournemouth team just keeps surprising everyone. No one's talking about Europe, but look at the table. They're right in the mix. As for Newcastle, that Champions League spot they just got back into. Looking a bit shaky now, isn't it? Speaking of giants being killed, let's talk about that absolute scenes at the Estadio Municipal, where Leganes just ended Atletico Madrid's 15-game winning streak. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Atletico are flying, top of the table, record-breaking run. Surely this is straightforward? Well, football had other ideas, didn't it? The stats tell you everything about this one. Atletico with 60% possession, an XG of 2.52 compared to Leganes's. 0.41, 3 shots off the woodwork, and then that penalty miss at the death. You couldn't write this script, could you? First half, and Atletico are absolutely dominating. 12 minutes in, Julian Alvarez hits the bar, and you're thinking, okay, maybe just one of those moments. But the chances keep coming. Griezmann's having shots saved, hitting the post, everything but the goal. But then, 49 minutes in, drama. Danny Rabah whips in this corner, and who's there? Matija Nastasic. The header? Absolutely perfect, right into the bottom corner, 1-0. And get this, this is Leganes' first ever win against Atletico in La Liga, after 9 attempts. Talk about picking your moment. Gotta give a massive shout out to Leganes' defensive display though. The way they soaked up that pressure, bodies on the line, every player giving absolutely everything. This is what football's all about, isn't it? And their keeper Dmitrovic? My word, what a performance against his old club. But then, just when you think this story can't get any more dramatic, 90th minute penalty to Atletico. Sergio Gonzalez handles it in the box, VAR confirms it, and who steps up? Antoine Griezmann, the man who's been absolutely on fire this season. The whole stadium holding its breath, and he misses. Sends it wide of the right post. You could hear the whole of Madrid groan. The thing is, this result is absolutely massive for the title race. Real Madrid are now just 1 point behind, with a game against Las Palmas tomorrow where they could go top. When was the last time we saw Atletico throw away an opportunity like this? Simeone must be absolutely fuming. And let's talk about those stats because they're honestly ridiculous. Atletico creating chance after chance, dominating possession, forcing Leganes to defend deeper and deeper. But sometimes football's not about the pretty stuff, is it? Sometimes it's about throwing your body on the line, making those last-ditch blocks, and taking your one big chance when it comes. The scary thing for Atletico? This wasn't even a case of them playing badly. They created enough chances to win 3 games. Griezmann hitting the post, Alvarez hitting the bar, all those blocked shots. On another day, they win this 4 or 5-0. But that's football, isn't it? Sometimes you just have one of those days where nothing goes in. For Leganes, though? Oh my days. Their first ever win against Atletico in La Liga, ending this ridiculous 15-game winning streak, and they did it with an XG of 0.41. That's what you call efficiency. One proper chance, one goal. That's all it takes sometimes. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This is the kind of result that can absolutely transform a title race. Real Madrid will be absolutely buzzing, win tomorrow and they're top. And with the Madrid derby coming up, this just got very, very interesting. 15 straight wins, dominating possession, penalty and stoppage time, and still Atletico go home with nothing. Sometimes the beautiful game isn't so beautiful after all. Now to Germany. Let's talk about that absolute thriller at the Allianz Arena where Bayern Munich just edged past Wolfsburg in a 5-goal spectacle. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, both teams have won their first 2 games of 2025. Something's got to give, right? Well, what we got was pure entertainment. 3 minutes in, and we're already getting drama. Leroy Sané absolutely leathers one from outside the box, and the crossbar's still shaking. This is what Bayern under Company is all about, isn't it? Straight out of the blocks, going for the jugular. 20 minutes in, bang! Leon Goretzka picks up this ball outside the box and just absolutely rifles it into the bottom corner. The technique on that? Absolutely sublime. But here's where it gets interesting. 4 minutes later, Wolfsburg hit back, their first shot on target, and Amura makes it count. 1-1. Got to give a massive shout out to Hasenhüttl here, because this is exactly what he wanted from his Wolfsburg team. Isn't it? Everyone's expecting them to come to the Allianz and park the bus. But nah, they're here to play, here to compete. 39 minutes in, though, Bayern show their class. Sané sets up Olise, and the finish? Clinical. His 6th of the season already. And you're thinking that's Bayern starting to take control? But wait, there's drama before halftime. Kimmich thinks he's made it 3-1, the Allianz is bouncing, but VAR spots a handball. Still 2-1 at the break. Second half, and Goretzka's at it again. 62 minutes in, Olise whips in this absolutely perfect free kick, and Goretzka's header is right in the bottom corner. That's his 3rd Bundesliga brace now. Talk about timing. And you know what makes this even better? His overall game was just ridiculous, controlling that midfield like he owned it. But Wolfsburg? Oh my days, they just wouldn't give up. 88th minute, Thiago Tomas plays this brilliant ball through on the counter, and there's Amura again. The finish? Ice cold. His 8th of the season now, Wolfsburg's top scorer showing exactly why. The stats tell you everything about this one. Bayern with 23 chances created. Kane having headers saved, Coman missing opportunities, Gnabry forcing saves. This could have been a cricket score. But you know what? Sometimes that's what makes football beautiful, isn't it? Wolfsburg hanging in there, taking their chances when they come. Got to mention that Bayern midfield, though. Goretzka absolutely running the show, Kimmich pulling the strings, and how about Michael Olise? A goal and an assist? That's the kind of performance that makes you understand why Bayern brought him in. The vision for that free kick to Goretzka? Chef's kiss. For Hasenhüttl, though? He'll be proud of this Wolfsburg team. Coming to the Allianz, going toe-to-toe with Bayern, scoring twice? That takes some doing. And the way Amura's playing, 8 goals already this season? That's the kind of form that could keep Wolfsburg dreaming of European football. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? Bayern make even these tight games look like part of the plan. 3 points, stay top of the table. Goretzka showing his class, Olise proving his worth. Just another day at the office for the champions, isn't it? Sometimes you don't need the perfect performance. You just need your big players to step up in the big moments. And when you've got someone like Goretzka doing that, that's what champion teams are made of. In Leverkusen, let's talk about that masterclass at the Bay Arena where Florian Wirtz just put on an absolute show. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Leverkusen have won their last 10 in all competitions. Surely they can't keep this form going? Well, Wirtz had other ideas. Early drama, though. 8 minutes in, and Martin Terrier's forced off injured. You're thinking this could be the moment where Leverkusen's rhythm gets disrupted, right? But nah. Xabi Alonso just brings on Piero Hincapié, and the machine keeps rolling. That's what great teams do, isn't it? Adapt and overcome. Then, 32 minutes in. Oh my days, what a goal! Granit shocks out Wirtz with this diagonal pass, and what does the kid do? Only goes and nutmegs before slotting it past Nicolas the keeper. The composure, the technique, this is why everyone's talking about him, isn't it? 9 goals this season now, and they're not just any goals. But here's where it gets interesting. Leverkusen are absolutely dominating possession, creating chances, and then on the hour mark, penalty! Julian Weigl handles it in the box, and up steps Wirtz again. The pressure? No problem. Bottom right corner. Keeper goes the wrong way. 2-0. Got to give a massive shout out to Xabi Alonso here, because what he's doing with this Leverkusen team is absolutely ridiculous. The patterns of play, The pressing, the way they adapted after losing Terrier early. This is proper coaching, isn't it? And when you've got players like Wirtz executing the plan perfectly, that's when magic happens. 74 minutes in, and Wirtz isn't done yet. Gets the ball in midfield, threads this perfect through ball to Patrick Schick, and the finish? Clinical. 3-0. That's a goal and an assist for Wirtz now. Talk about a complete performance. The scary thing is he's only getting better, isn't he? Yeah, Gladbach got one back in stoppage time through Kleindienst after a nice cross from Netz. But let's be honest, this was the Florian Wirtz show from start to finish. The way he was running the game, creating chances, scoring goals, this is what world class looks like. The thing is, this result is absolutely massive in the title race. Bayern won earlier, so Leverkusen had to respond, and boy did they do it in style. When you've got players stepping up like this in the big moments, that's what champions are made of. But you know what really stands out? The mentality of this Leverkusen team. Lose a key player early doors? No problem. Need someone to step up and take control? Wirtz raises his hand. Need to keep pace with Bayern at the top? Job done with style. That's 11 wins in a row now in all competitions. When was the last time we saw a Leverkusen team with this kind of consistency? They won the Bundesliga, and the way they're playing, it could happen again. Got to feel for Gladbach, though. They came here after back-to-back defeats to start 2025, and they run into Wirtz in this kind of mood? That's rough. They tried to play, tried to create chances, but when you're up against a team playing with this much confidence, sometimes you've just got to hold your hands up. The scary thing is, this Leverkusen team might actually be getting better. The understanding between the players, the confidence growing game by game, and when you've got a talent like Wirtz running the show, sky's the limit, isn't it? Sometimes you just have to sit back and appreciate greatness when you see it. This wasn't just a win. This was a statement. Bayern might have won earlier, but Leverkusen just showed they're not going anywhere in this title race. Let's talk about that absolute madness at the Vonovia Ruhrstadion, where Myron Boadu just rode him into Bundesliga folklore. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Leipzig missing both Šeško and Openda, maybe Bochum's got a chance? Well, after 22 minutes, that looked like the worst take ever. 10 minutes in, and the drama starts. Willy Orban, of all people, catches Drews completely off guard with this unorthodox lob. And before Bochum can even catch their breath, 3 minutes later, Antonio Nusa makes it 2 with this absolute rocket into the bottom corner. Then, just 22 minutes in, you're thinking it can't get any worse for Bochum, right? Wrong. David Raum is at it again with another assist, and Baumgartner makes it 3-0. Leipzig converting every single shot on target, and you're thinking this is going to be a cricket score. But then, oh my days, what a story. Dieter Hecking makes this inspired substitution at halftime, bringing on Gerrit Holtmann for Paslak, and suddenly everything changes. 3 minutes into the second half, Boadu pounces on a defensive error, and it's game on. The thing is, no one's thinking comeback at this point, are they? But 8 minutes later, Brzezinski sets up Boadu again, and suddenly it's 3-2. The Vonovia Ruhrstadion is absolutely bouncing. And then, just 5 minutes after that, penalty to Bochum. Nusa brings down De Witt in the box, and guess who steps up? Got to talk about the pressure on Boadu here. You're on for your hat trick. Your team's fought back from 3-0 down, the whole stadium holding its breath, and he absolutely leathers it into the top right corner. 3-all. 13 minutes, 3 goals, one of the greatest comebacks you'll ever see. The crazy thing is, it could have been even better for Bochum. Hits the bar from a corner, and you're thinking, maybe, just maybe. But then in the 95th minute, Poulsen nearly breaks Bochum hearts. Gets this chance from point-blank range, but somehow puts it wide. Talk about living dangerously. Got to give a massive shout-out to Dieter Hecking, though. That halftime substitution, absolute masterclass. Holtmann comes on and just changes the whole dynamic of the game. Gets the assist for Boadu's first, and suddenly Leipzig are on the back foot. But let's talk about Myron Boadu for a minute, because what a story this is. The AS Monaco loanee just showed exactly why Bochum brought him in. 3 shots on target, 3 goals. That's what you call clinical, isn't it? The movement for the first, the composure for the second, and then the absolute nerve to stick that penalty away for the hat trick. For Leipzig, though, oh dear. 3-0 up after 22 minutes, your two main strikers out, and the replacements actually doing the business. How do you throw that away? Marco Rose must have been absolutely fuming. Yeah, they nearly won it at the death through Poulsen. But when you're 3 up, you've got to see that out, haven't you? The implications for both teams are massive here. Bochum fighting relegation. This kind of comeback can absolutely transform your season. And for Leipzig, those Champions League spots looking a bit further away now, isn't it? When you're trying to finish top 4, these are the games you've got to win. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This wasn't even a case of Leipzig falling apart. Bochum just refused to give up. The character to come back from 3 down, the belief to keep pushing, and then having someone like Boadu to actually finish those chances? That's what football's all about, isn't it? From 3-0 down to 3-all in 13 minutes. You genuinely couldn't write this stuff. Now let's talk about the other matches in England, starting with that absolute nightmare at the King Power, where Leicester's season just keeps getting worse. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Van Nistelrooy's only picked up 4 points from 24. Surely this has got to be the game where they turn it around? Well, Fulham had other ideas. First half, and Leicester actually start bright, pushing forward, showing intent, looking like a team fighting for their lives. But you know what they say about false dawns, don't you? Because just after halftime, bang! Harry Wilson whips in this cross. Lukic with the clever flick on, and who's there? Emile Smith-Rowe. Talk about bravery. Throws himself at it with Stolarczyk coming, gets absolutely clattered, but the ball's in the net. What a way to mark your 100th Premier League appearance. Could have been 2-0 straight after that, actually. Shh. Gets this perfect chance. Header from close range and somehow puts it wide. But then, 68 minutes in, the kind of goal that just sums up Leicester's season. Ball drops to Dama Traore and he just side-foots this ridiculous volley into the bottom corner. The technique on that? Absolutely sublime. But let's talk about what's happening at Leicester, because this is getting ugly, isn't it? Empty seats before kickoff. When was the last time you saw that at the King Power? Then Van Nistelrooy makes these changes, bringing on Skip and McAteer, and the whole stadium erupts in boos. And when he takes off El Canouse, the chants start. You don't know what you're doing. Got to mention that Buonanotte decision as well, leaving him on the bench when you're desperate for goals? The fans were absolutely fuming. When he finally came on, those ironic cheers told you everything about the mood at Leicester right now. The scary thing is, this is 7 defeats in 9 games under Van Nistelrooy. 7 straight Premier League losses. When they appointed him, everyone was talking about his reputation, his experience. But 2 points from safety with this squad? That's absolutely criminal, isn't it? For Fulham, though? Oh my days, what a performance. Marco Silva must be absolutely buzzing. After that winless run, to come here and put in a display like this, that's proper coaching. And get this, they're now just 5 points off Newcastle in 4th. When was the last time we saw Fulham even thinking about Champions League football? The thing is, Leicester actually had their moments. A couple of penalty shouts, some early pressure. But this is Premier League football, isn't it? You don't take your chances. You don't show that killer instinct. You get punished. Fulham had 2 proper chances, 2 goals. That's the difference between a team looking up the table and one staring at relegation. Got to give a massive shout out to Smith-Rowe, though. 100th Premier League appearance, gets absolutely cleaned out scoring that header. But that's what you've got to do, isn't it? When you're pushing for Europe, those are the moments that make the difference. His 4th of the season now, showing exactly why Fulham brought him in. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This Leicester team shouldn't be anywhere near the relegation zone. The squad they've got, the money they've spent, and now they're 2 points adrift with a trip to Spurs coming up. You've got to wonder how much longer the board's going to stick with Van Nistelrooy. One team fighting for Europe, the other fighting for survival. But sometimes those fights look very different, don't they? Fulham, clinical, confident, pushing up to ninth. Leicester? Well, when your own fans are singing "You don't know what you're doing," that tells you everything. Moving on to West Ham and Palace, let's talk about that historic night at the London Stadium where Crystal Palace just made it 7 away games unbeaten. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, West Ham at home, they must fancy their chances, right? Well, Palace under Glasner are a different beast, aren't they? The thing is, for 48 minutes, this was looking like one of those typical London derbies. Cagey, tight, not much between the teams. But then, oh my days, what a moment. Picks up the ball and plays this absolutely sublime ball through Mateta. The finish? Ice cold. Bottom corner, Fabianski no chance. Got to talk about that Eze Mateta connection because it's becoming something special, isn't it? That's Eze's 8th assist for Mateta. Now, no Palace player in Premier League history has set up a teammate more often. The understanding between these two? Absolutely ridiculous. Then things get even spicier. 80 minutes in, Mavropanos, who by the way was already on a yellow, decides to not only grapple with Mateta, but then throw in a high boot to his face. Red card! What was he thinking? When you're chasing the game at home, that's the last thing you need, isn't it? But wait, there's more drama. 2 minutes from time, Mateta plays this perfect ball through to Nketiah, and Fabianski absolutely wipes him out. Penalty! Up steps Mateta again, and even though Fabianski gets a hand to it, the ball squirms under him. That's 8 Premier League goals this season for Mateta now. Talk about finding form at the right time. The scary thing is, West Ham didn't even manage a shot on target. At home. This is a team that's now conceded 26 goals in just 12 home games. And get this, they still haven't won a single game this season after going behind. That's the kind of stat that got Lopetegui the sack, isn't it? For Palace, though? Oh my days, what a turnaround under Glasner. Remember when they couldn't buy a win until the end of October? Now they're on a 5-game unbeaten run in the league, and they've just made history. 7 away games without defeat. Never done that before in the top flight. And 3 clean sheets on the bounce away from home? When was the last time we saw Palace this solid? Got to mention their new signing as well. Roman S. coming in from Millwall. 19 years old, 5 goals and an assist this season. Exactly the kind of signing that fits this new Palace identity, isn't it? Young, hungry, ready to prove himself at the top level. The thing is, this result moves Palace up to 12th, with West Ham dropping to 14th. And you can see why. Palace looking organized, clinical, playing with a clear plan. West Ham, 10 defeats already this season. And yeah, they're 10 points clear of relegation. But with performances like this, that gap could shrink pretty quickly. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This wasn't even Palace's best performance. They just did the basics right, stayed compact, took their chances, and let West Ham implode. When you've got players like Eze and Mateta in this kind of form, sometimes that's all you need, isn't it? Glasner must be absolutely buzzing. After those early season struggles, Palace look like a proper team now, don't they? The defensive solidity, the attacking partnerships developing, this is what happens when you give a manager time to implement his ideas. One team making history. The other can't even manage a shot on target at home. From struggling to win to can't stop winning away, who'd have thought we'd be saying that about Palace back in October? Let's move to the other matches in Spain, starting with that dramatic late show at the Montilivi, where Sevilla just turned the tables on Girona. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Girona sitting pretty in 8th, Sevilla down in 13th. Should be straightforward, right? Oh my days, was this anything but? 3 minutes in, and drama already. Oriol Romeu, who, by the way, probably wishes he could have this moment back, gives away this penalty. And you're thinking, okay, Isaac Romero steps up. This is Sevilla's chance to make a statement early doors. But football, Paulo Gazzaniga gets down brilliantly to his right and saves it. The Montilivi absolutely erupts, and doesn't that missed penalty come back to haunt Sevilla? 36 minutes in, Viktor Tsihankov whips in this perfect corner. And who's there? Arnau Martinez. The header? Clinical. 1-0 Girona. At this point, you're thinking this is just going to be one of those days for Sevilla, isn't it? But then, 59 minutes in, everything changes. Saul Nunez, who by the way had already had a header saved moments before, pops up in the 6-yard box after a corner and bang! We're all square! The thing is, Sevilla weren't done there, were they? The game's ticking towards a draw. We're in the 88th minute, and then Saul, who's already got his goal, remember, turns provider this time with this absolutely perfect headed pass, and Dodi Luke Bacchio's there to finish it off. 2-1. The away end goes absolutely mental. Got to give a massive shout out to Girona, though. They threw absolutely everything at it in those final minutes. Christian Stuani, who came on as a sub, gets 2 chances in stoppage time but just couldn't find the target. You could feel the frustration in the Montalivi. These are the moments that can define your season. The crazy thing is, this result completely shuffles the table, doesn't it? Sevilla jump 4 places up to 9th, and they're now breathing down Girona's neck, just 2 points behind them. For a team that was sitting 13th, that's some turnaround. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? The way this game played out. Missed penalty, going behind, late winner. This is exactly the kind of character Sevilla's been missing this season. The question now is, can they build on this? Because this kind of win, snatching victory from the jaws of a draw, away from home, that's the stuff that can transform your entire season. For Girona, though, oh dear. When you're 1-0 up at home and concede twice in the second half, that's got to hurt. Especially that winner. 2 minutes from time? That's the kind of goal that keeps managers up at night. In Betis, let's talk about that incredible night at the Benito Villamarin, where Quique Garcia just put on an absolute masterclass. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Betis at home should be straightforward, right? Well, Quique had other ideas. 10 minutes in, and drama already. Marc Bartra brings down Quique in the box, penalty to Alaves. Up steps Quique himself, and bang, bottom left corner, no chance for Adrian. 1-0 to the visitors. But then, 28 minutes in, Betis show their quality. Isco sets it up perfectly, and Jesus Rodriguez absolutely leathers one from outside the box into the bottom corner. What a hit! Game on. The thing is, this is where it gets interesting. 55 minutes in, absolute chaos. Romain Perraud, who by the way had only been on the pitch for 14 minutes after coming on as a sub, gets himself sent off. Straight red for a challenge on Carlos Vicente. When you're at home, drawing 1-1, that's the last thing you need, isn't it? And doesn't it just come back to haunt them? 80 minutes in, Carlos Vicente puts in this perfect cross, and who's there? Quique Garcia again. The finish? Clinical. Left foot into the bottom corner, 2-1. But wait, he's not done yet. 4 minutes later, Vicente's at it again with another brilliant cross, and Kike rises highest to plant this header right into the bottom corner. Hat trick hero! The away end absolutely erupts. When was the last time we saw an Alaves player score a hat trick away from home? Gotta give a massive shout out to Carlos Vicente, though, because those assists were absolutely perfect. The vision, the delivery. This is what happens when your forwards and wingers are on the same wavelength, isn't it? And Kike's movement for all 3 goals? Absolutely top drawer. For Betis, though? Oh dear, that red card absolutely killed them. Yeah, they had their moments. Vitor Roque causing problems early on, Isco trying to make things happen. But when you go down to 10 men and you've got someone like Quique in this kind of mood, you're asking for trouble, aren't you? The thing is, this wasn't even a case of Betis playing badly. That Rodriguez goal was absolutely world class. They were creating chances, looking dangerous. But sometimes football comes down to moments, doesn't it? That Perraud red card, those clinical finishes from Quique, that's what decides games at this level. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? Alaves make it look so simple in the end. Get the early penalty, weather the storm after Betis equalize, then let Quique do what Quique does best. From 1-1 to 3-1 in just 4 minutes. That's what you call efficient, isn't it? Quique Garcia. A penalty, a left foot finish, and a header to seal the hat trick. That's what you call a complete striker's performance. Now let's finish Italy in Bologna. Let's talk about that brilliant comeback from Bologna at the Renato Dallara. Coming into this one, after those back-to-back two-all thrillers with Roma and Inter, you're thinking Bologna should handle bottom-of-the-table Monza, right? Well, football had other ideas. 4 minutes in, and drama already. Santiago Castro has this shot blocked, and before you can blink, Monza are away. Patricia with this absolutely perfect through ball. And Daniel Maldini, yes, that Maldini, just slots it past the keeper. The thing is, Monza were absolutely decimated by injuries coming into this. No Calderola, no Mota Carvalho, no Mari. The list goes on. But here they are, taking the lead. But Bologna, oh my days, they just kept coming. 22 minutes in, Riccardo Orsolini, who, by the way, has been absolutely desperate to end his goal drought, whips in this perfect cross from the right, and there's Santiago Castro with a header that just nestles in the bottom corner. Game on. And then, 34 minutes in, this is where it gets beautiful. Benjamin Dominguez, remember that name, sets it up perfectly for Jens Odgaard, and the technique on this? Chef's kiss. First touch to flick it up, then bang! Left foot volley into the bottom corner. 2-1. Could have been game over right there, actually. Orsolini rolls one across, but Carboni with this absolutely crucial block. And then, oh dear, Stefan Posch, from point-blank range, somehow manages to send it to the moon. The kind of miss that keeps you up at night. More drama before halftime. Warren Bondo, who Monza really couldn't afford to lose with all their injuries, has to come off. You could just see the frustration on Bocchetti's face. When it rains, it pours, doesn't it? Second half, and Bologna just keep turning the screw. Dalinga comes on for Castro and nearly makes it 3, but his header from Orsolini's cross just won't go in. But then, 69 minutes in, finally Orsolini gets his moment. Lico Giannis with this perfect cross from the left and Orsolini at the back post. The control, the finish from that tight angle, absolutely clinical. 3-1. Could have been even more. Turati pulls out this worldy save to deny Dalinga's looping header, and then from the corner, De Silvestri hits one that somehow comes back off the inside of the post. When was the last time you saw that? The crazy thing is, this wasn't just any win for Bologna, was it? After those draws with Roma and Inter, they needed this. And the way they did it, going behind early, showing that character to come back, that's what separates the good teams from the great ones. For Monza, though, oh dear. Still rock bottom. And when you look at that injury list, 8 players out now, you've got to wonder where the goals are going to come from. Yeah, Maldini got one today, but they need more than just moments of magic, don't they? But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? The way Bologna played today. The movement, the passing, those combinations between Orsolini and the forwards. This is a team that's absolutely flying. Let's round this up with the rest of the matches in Germany, starting with St. Pauli. Let's talk about that massive result at the Voith Arena, where St. Pauli just grabbed a vital win in the relegation battle. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, both teams desperate for points. New signings James Sands and Noah Weishaupt making their debuts for Pauli. This could go either way, right? Well, what a story this turned out to be. First few minutes, and you can feel the tension in the stadium. Marvin Pieringer gets this header just wrong for Heidenheim. Then Manolis Saliakas responds for Pauli. Both teams know exactly what's at stake here, don't they? Then, 25 minutes in, drama. Franz Kretzig brings down Saliakas in the box, and the referee points straight to the spot. Up steps Johannes Eggestein, and my word, the composure. Sends Miller the wrong way, bottom left corner. 1-0 Pauli. Got to talk about those winter signings, though, because what an impact they've had. James Sands and Weishaupt slotting straight into the starting lineup. That's exactly what you want from your January business, isn't it? And the way they helped control that midfield, this is why you strengthen in the window. Second half, and Frank Schmitz not messing about. Makes 2 changes at halftime, bringing on Warner and Beck to try and add some creativity. But this is where Alexander Blessin shows his tactical nous, gets Pauli set up perfectly to frustrate Heidenheim, soaking up that pressure and looking dangerous on the break. Then scenes. 87th minute. Heidenheim think they've got their equalizer. The home crowd's going absolutely mental. But wait, VR's having a look. Offside! The groan around the Voith Arena tells you everything. And you know what they say about these moments, don't you? You've got to take your chances when they come. Because 5 minutes later, in stoppage time, Pauli showed them exactly how it's done. Oladapo Afolayan breaks down that left wing, puts in this perfect cross, and there's Morgan Gilavogi sliding in at the back post. 2-0. Game over. Got to give a massive shout out to Eggestein, though, because what a performance. Not just the penalty. His whole game was absolutely spot on. The way he held the ball up, brought others into play, kept Heidenheim's defense honest all game. That's what you need in these relegation battles, isn't it? The scary thing is, this wasn't even a case of Heidenheim playing badly. They had their moments, pushed hard for that equalizer, thought they'd got it. But sometimes football comes down to those key moments, doesn't it? That disallowed goal, then getting caught on the counter. That's the difference between picking up points and going home empty-handed. But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? Pauli just showed everyone exactly how to play these six-pointers. Solid at the back, clinical when the chances come, and that bit of luck with VAR. Sometimes that's all you need, isn't it? From struggling in the relegation zone to picking up massive away wins, this could be the result that turns their season around. Football, eh? Just when you think you've got a relegation battle figured out, someone steps up and grabs it by the scruff of the neck. A penalty, a VAR drama, and a stoppage time clincher. That's what survival battles are made of. Moving on to that massive win at the Holstein Stadion, where Adam Hlojek just put on an absolute masterclass. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, both teams separated by just 3 points. Hoffenheim trying to bounce back from that 5-0 hammering by Bayern. Kiel fresh off beating Dortmund. This is proper six-pointer territory, isn't it? Christian Ilzer rolls the dice before kickoff, giving young Max Morstedt only his second Bundesliga start. That's the kind of decision that can make or break a manager in these situations, isn't it? But then there's Marcel Rapp, facing his old club, keeping faith with the team that stunned Dortmund. Just one change with Geschwil coming in. 27 minutes in, bang! Hlojek breaks the deadlock with this absolutely clinical finish. The composure under pressure, exactly what you need in these relegation battles. And then, right on the stroke of half-time, Kramaric makes it 2! The finish? Bottom corner, no chance for Weiner. Talk about perfect timing. But here's where it gets interesting. Kiel come out fighting second half. Machino nearly pulls one back, and you're thinking, okay, game on maybe? But then 56 minutes in, oh my days. Hlojek picks up the ball outside the box and just absolutely leathers it into the far corner. The technique on that? Ridiculous. Bischoff with the assist, but that finish was all about individual brilliance. Then we get this absolutely bizarre moment. Felix Breitsch, one of the most experienced refs in the business, has to come off injured. When was the last time you saw that? Fourth official Sven Jablonski steps up, but you've got to wonder what that does to the flow of the game, don't you? Rapp's not giving up, though. Makes a triple substitution, bringing on Gigovic, Arp, and Kalati. Proper roll of the dice. And it nearly pays off. Kalati, who, by the way, used to play for Hoffenheim, gets one back against his old club with 6 minutes to go. But by then, it's too little too late, isn't it? Got to give a massive shout out to Hlojek, though, because what a performance. 2 goals, constant threat. That's exactly what you want from your forward in these games, isn't it? The way he took both goals, the movement off the ball, absolute masterclass in forward play. The thing is, this result is massive for both teams. Clear of the bottom 3. After that Bayern hammering, this is exactly what they needed. But for Kiel, after that high of beating Dortmund, this brings them right back down to earth, doesn't it? But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? Young Max Morstedt, thrown in at the deep end, puts in an absolute shift, nearly scores early on, holds the ball up well, brings others into play. These are the kind of performances that can turn a season around. For Ilzer, this is absolutely massive. 3 changes to the team that got battered by Bayern, gives youth a chance, and gets rewarded with a performance like this? That's what management's all about, isn't it? And with players like Klojek in this kind of form, you've got to fancy their chances of staying up. Sometimes all it takes is one player to step up and grab a game by the scruff of the neck. From getting hammered by Bayern to winning crucial 6-pointers, that's what makes this sport so special, isn't it? Lastly, let's talk about that absolute masterclass at the Mercedes-Benz Arena, where Stuttgart just made a massive statement in the race for Champions League football. Coming into this one, you're thinking, okay, Stuttgart have won 4 of their last 5. Freiburg haven't won away in 6. But nobody expected this kind of demolition, did they? 2 minutes in, and bang! Angelo Stiller whips in this perfect corner, and Anthony Rouault gets across his man at the near post to glance it home. Talk about setting the tone early. And before Freiburg can even catch their breath, 15 minutes later, it's Stiller again with another brilliant delivery, and who's there? Ermedin Demirovic. Against his old club as well. You couldn't write this stuff. Got to talk about Angelo Stiller, though, because what a performance. 2 assists in the first 17 minutes? The way he was controlling that midfield, picking those passes, he made it look absolutely effortless. 87% pass accuracy, constantly finding teammates in dangerous positions. That's what you call running the show, isn't it? Then just before halftime, more drama. Rosenfelder brings down Lewelling in the box, penalty to Stuttgart. Up steps Nick Woltemade, and the composure from the young lad? Ice cold. 3-0 at halftime, and you're thinking this could get ugly. The thing is, Freiburg's problems just kept mounting, didn't they? Matthias Ginter forced off injured early doors, having to bring on Lienhart. When it rains, it pours. And let's talk about that VAR moment around the half-hour mark. Demirovic thinks he's got his second. The crowd's going mental, but nah, offside. On another day, this could have been even worse for Freiburg. Second half, and Stuttgart just managed the game perfectly, don't they? Freiburg tried to show a bit more intent. Doan gets this shot off that needs blocking. Adamu forces a save from Nubel, but really never looking like getting back into it. Then, 80 minutes in, just to put the cherry on top, Deniz Undav picks up the ball outside the box, gets a bit of luck with the deflection off Makengo, and bang! 4-0. That's his 25th Bundesliga goal, by the way. Not bad for a substitute, is it? But you know what the maddest thing about all this is? This wasn't just a win. This was a proper statement. Stuttgart now sitting in those Champions League spots, playing this kind of football? Who'd have thought we'd be saying that at the start of the season? Got to feel for Freiburg, though. 6 away games without a win now, getting absolutely dismantled here. Those European dreams are starting to look pretty distant, aren't they? When you look at the stats, Stuttgart with 60% possession, winning 2/3 of the duels, this wasn't even close. The scary thing is, Stuttgart look like they're getting better and better. The confidence flowing through this team, the way they're moving the ball, the options off the bench, Führich and Brun Larsen coming on to keep that intensity up. This is what top teams do, isn't it? Sometimes you just have to sit back and admire a team when they're in this kind of mood. From the first whistle to the last, this was absolute domination. Champions League football at the Mercedes-Benz Arena next season? Don't bet against it. Let's end it here, a bit of a long one today. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you think of today's matches in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, as engagement from you really helps in boosting the channel. See you in the next one. Across the pitch, over and out.